Hello my friends, and welcome to a vlog series that I'm going to be doing for the course of this month. Essentially, if you follow the channel and you look at the update videos and the other vlogs, you'll know that at the end of this month I'll be moving away from Omaha, Nebraska, and moving to Florida, back in with my parents, in order to save up more money, in order to go back to school, continue the whole life thing that, and try to get closer to my goals. And I'm taking this as an opportunity to do something that I have been wanting to do for quite a while, and that is to sign up for coaching in MMA. And part of my history is that I have experienced a lot of different martial arts. I have learned martial arts cultures from a lot of different schools and a lot of different people. I've done Taekwondo, I've done Aikido. Get your laughs out of the way. I have done Aikido. I did Capoeira. I did American boxing. I did a little bit of Judo, a little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Essentially exposed myself to a lot of cultures of martial arts, but the most I experienced, I guess you could say, combat sports using martial arts, or just the plain art of fighting, was in very casual point sparring type situations. Nothing you would ever see reported on any other website, any professional tracker anywhere. And I've been in this position where I know that what I have is essentially a cultural skill set. It's not really fighting. And I want to really expose myself to what, I guess you could say, learning how to fight is like, not specifically what learning a martial art is like. And I guess you could say I've experienced a number of violent situations in my life, but for the most part, I have been very good about avoiding any sort of thing like that. You can kind of break it down like this. There are four steps to any given fight. Step number one is avoidance. If you can avoid being in conflict, if you can avoid violence in the first place, then you've won. You've achieved the goal of not succumbing to violence. And that involves a lot of just how you dictate your lifestyle, how you choose to live. Do you put yourself in contexts in which the likelihood of violence is fairly high? The second part of any given fight is posturing, where people talk. They talk either really big in order to, present themselves as someone you don't want to fight. You don't want to mess with this person. In terms of combat sportsmen versus bodybuilders, weightlifters, there's this conversation of lions versus monkeys or snakes, where a person who is huge, has huge muscles, a big, strong bodybuilder, never has to worry about a fight because they are huge. They look scary, and that fear is enough to essentially be able to posture just by walking down the street. Apologize if my eyes ever come out of frame. I didn't really angle the camera too correctly here. Big guys have a huge advantage in a fight simply because of how big they are. The idea that martial arts will make it so that regardless of the size or strength of your opponent, you can win, that's not true. That's not true at all. Being bigger and being stronger makes you better at winning fights. 100% just does. And martial arts, fighting, learning is about increasing your chances. Then there is the actual fight. And that's sort of the thing that I want to get into, want to really experience in a way that I haven't experienced before. But there's not really a good reason to go out and start picking fights in the street. For one, it's illegal. For two, it's stupid. 3, there's no rules, so someone can pull out a knife or a gun and end you. And having good hand-to-hand combat essentials is good for a lot of different applications when you get into a violent altercation. But you're not going to walk away unscathed if the person on the other end either wants to kill you or thinks you want to kill them. And then the fourth part of any given fight is a submission. And a submission is essentially what happens when someone in a fight decides that they don't want to lose. They don't want to finish the fight. And it happens a lot. And most people who think they know what getting into a fight is like, essentially think that that's where the fight ends. They think fights lead to submissions, that people learn lessons from fights. But in the real world, no one does. When you lose a fight, you just are upset, and the only thing you learned was that you weren't good enough to win that fight. But it won't change any other belief you have. You'll just go on, thinking the way you did, thinking you are in the right, but, with a black eye and a broken nose. Or the other guy with a black eye and a broken nose. Whoops. Sorry about that. And so submission is essentially backing down. Avoiding a violent altercation by capitulating, by saying, hey, I'm sorry. No, you're right. Ooh, wow. Brick roads, huh? Maybe I'll hold the camera for a sec, because it's not really stable. I don't know how to set these things up very well on the move. Sorry for making you look at my hand so much. But yeah, if you can essentially submit, say, I'm sorry, you're right, I'm in the wrong. You can lie, it's fine. You're not actually telling the truth, but you're avoiding a violent situation. And if that person is like, yeah, I'm right, and walks away, guess what? You just won the fight. Because you avoided a violent altercation. You avoided violence purposefully and specifically on your own terms. And yeah, you had to swallow your pride to do it, but you walked away. You got what you wanted. You won that fight. And I guess I should share my experience with actually getting into violent altercations in real life. Geez, this is not working out super great. This might get edited. Alright, that might be a better angle even. So, I guess the first real major one that I can point to happened when I was in high school, and it was really stupid. They always are stupid, but this one was particularly stupid because the situation was that for this 1 week, I left school, I drove out of the parking lot at the exact same time every single day, and there was this one group of kids who were kind of just goofing off as they crossed the exit to the parking lot. And so in order to avoid them, I chose a different exit. And I did that every single day for 4 days in a row until Friday. And they were there at every single exit, that even though I took a different exit each of those days. It was really a comedy of errors in that sense. And my response on Thursday was impatient and dumb, and I just gave them a little honk and said, move on your way. Just made a gesture. Go, move, And, these boys did not take that very well. And one of these boys was in the weightlifting class that I was in. We were in the same class. And he and his friends the next day, came up in their car. I was walking to my car with my friend Jeff, leaving school a little later on Friday, which was normal for me. And he and his friends decided to play a game of let's pretend to run Alex over with our car. And, that's what they did. They ran up on me with their car, stopped short after a few false, attempts. And then one of the guy that was in my weightlifting class, got out of the car, started posturing, puffed up his chest. He was smaller than me. I'll admit that he was smaller than me, but he was getting ready for a fight. He had his buddies with him. They were cheering him on from inside the car, and he was like, "I'm gonna kick your ass." And in response to that, I had been doing Taekwondo for a while now, and I didn't want to get into this fight, and so all I did was, I took a breath, I took out my phone, I dialed the numbers 911, but I did not call. I handed it to my friend, and I told him, when the fight starts, call the police. Then I turned back to this kid, I looked at him right in the eye, and I said, "All right, I'm ready." And this kid responded by backing down. He was like, "Whatever, you're fucking lame," or some, high school thing people say. I forget what he said. And he called me a bitch as he was getting into the car. And because I was feeling proud of myself, as he started to drive away, I called back to him, "At least I'm not a coward." And he responded with, "At least I'm not a nigger." And that was pretty shaking, but then we just went back into the school, talked to the resource officer, and, that turned into a whole situation. I didn't press charges for the assault. For each assault I've ever had in my life, I've never pressed charges. I just like the ability to threaten pressing charges. I would say I won that fight. And the reason I say I won that fight is because I had the superior posturing. I was able to essentially take on a position of greater threat of force and convince the person who was standing across from me to not go through with the fight. And it wasn't me, it wasn't my force that convinced this guy. That much is obvious because he was ready to start throwing blows, even though I was a foot taller than him. And we were both in the same weightlifting class, and I can tell you that, I knew for a fact that I lifted more than he did. But he was ready to fight. And the posturing stage of the fight, I did it well enough to convince this kid not to fight me. I'm facing the sun here, so it's gonna look real bad. I guess I could fast forward and, I skip a few things that happened in college, but the very first weekend, after I graduated from LMU and I moved into an apartment in downtown Los Angeles, I was the very first weekend after that, I was checking my mailbox, and someone knocked on the door to the apartment asking to be let in because it was a locked apartment. I'm going to put down the sun visor here so you can't see me at all. But it was a locked apartment, and I was getting my mail, and I kind of just ignored the guy because the whole idea of having a lock on a door in a downtown Los Angeles apartment building is to not let someone who shouldn't be there in. Only the people who live there come in, and everyone who lives there has a key. And wouldn't you know it, the guy in fact had a key, and he opened the door and stepped in. And, you know, I just got out of the hyper-social college environment and think, oh yeah, well, you know, I can talk to this guy and we can reach a mutual understanding and still be on good terms. And he said, oh, you know, it's no problem, man. I was just testing whether or not you were a good Samaritan. And then, you know, I responded with something like, well, I don't think I wasn't being a good Samaritan. At which point the guy started yelling about all of these different things, about how bad of a person I was. Again, this guy also called me a bitch. He started yelling about what street he grew up on, which, you know, I had no idea because I wasn't from downtown Los Angeles. He started yelling about how I'm not actually black, you know, light skin this, light skin that, a bunch of other, you know, really angry yelling things. He put me in a corner in the mailroom, and there were a bunch of people by the elevator who were watching, doing nothing because they didn't want to get involved, bystander effect and whatnot. And so my response was essentially put up my hands the way I always do when one of these situations occurs. You know, hold them up in front of me, hands out, so it looks like I'm the victim, even though they're in a defensive position. And I just say, hey, I'm sorry. You're right. I should have let you in. In other words, it was a submission. The elevator comes in, the guy says, yeah, you're right, and walks away. But guess what? In my book, I say I won that fight. I won that fight because he was ready to throw our lives away and, you know, get into a violent altercation in order, just because of me not letting him in the door of an apartment building. And I did not. That was not my goal. My goal was to avoid violence. And so in that situation, the best way was to submit. And pretty much every other situation like this in my life has been in the form of talking my way out of it. I have talked my way out of every single fight I've ever had and spent lots of time in various different times of my life investing in different types of self-defense while also trying to explore different cultures, essentially trying to be ready for a situation like that. And ultimately the skill that I'm best at, which is talking, having conversations with people, being a philosopher and talking my way through conflict, has been the skill that has gotten me out of every single conflict I've ever had. It's the skill I'm best at, so it's the skill I go to, which is why I honestly say I've won every fight that I've been on, every fight I've been in on the street, because I've talked my way out of the fight. The fight didn't happen because my words were used in the correct way to convince the other person to go away. And that's all you really need to do. You don't show up in the situation that is violent, so avoidance. You either posture your way to make the fight not happen, submit your way to prevent the fight from happening before it even starts, but there's still that one element of the fight. And so, for this entire month, if I can get this camera here to look at me, for this entire month, so in front of us here is the Premier Combat Center. They're an MMA gym, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, etc. gym here in Omaha. And I did research on them beforehand. All of their instructors are either current or former professional fighters. They are training people who are going amateur, trying to go pro. So they're actually focused on the sport of MMA and the sport of boxing. They're a competitive school. They teach competitive combat sports, which is a little different from what I've been experiencing up until now, and it's what I'm looking for. So here's the project. I am going to take you along with this month of MMA boot camp. I've signed up for a month of training with them, which is essentially going to be 6 classes a week. I'm going to be keeping up my own training in terms of weightlifting and everything else on my own time in between. And since I have this opportunity from moving away, having already met my commitments in terms of rent and everything before heading out of this state, I'm going to be focused on this primarily. I'm going to, the project is going to be, I'm going to make a vlog about my experience after each day of training. And the other challenge is, in making this vlog, I also hope to get better at vlogging. In other words, not taking so many pauses when I'm speaking, not saying as much every time I want to think of a sentence to say, because I know that's annoying for a lot of people. And I just kind of want to bring anyone who's watching this channel along with me on this journey, bounce the ideas that I'm having off of it. And I apologize for making you look at my armpit. That was not my intent, but I hope you enjoy it, and hopefully these will be able to come out consistently and not be terrible. So if you do enjoy this idea, if you like the idea of this project, give this video a like, follow me along with each of the vlogs that come after it. There will probably be, I think, about 3 a week. I'm not sure. If I have literally no thoughts, it'll probably just be a video of me lying on the ground exhausted. But that would be fun too, right? So wish me luck in this endeavor. I wish you luck in all of your endeavors out there, even if they're not in the form of voluntarily getting punched in the face like mine is going to be. So, I am excited. I don't mean to be super serious about everything, but I'm excited for this month where I'm going to just be drilling the fundamentals of how to fight, and it's going to be exciting. So, I guess I could say thank you for watching this one. Thank you as always, and yeah, goodbye, and stay true.